Many times in our lives, game series can change and often adapt to current trends. Whether it's adopting new features or changing the gameplay mechanics to follow suit with how the game industry is evolving, though inevitably, some will miss the mark completely. Such is the case of the edgy teen years of the Fallout series and the game that represented that time period, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. And if you want to escape your edgy teen years, make sure to subscribe to the channel now for more content like this. I wouldn't want to cut your life into pieces and have this be your last resort, so save us both the trouble and do it now. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, not to be confused with Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel, a far superior game that I've covered in a video like this as well, was Fallout's first attempt at a console game. But it also offered features that fans of the series had been curious about. It would be the second Fallout game to feature multiplayer, the first being the aforementioned Tactics. Brotherhood of Steel would mark the first time the series would go 3D as well, though still keeping the top-down, semi-isometric look from the original series. All of these features would go widely overlooked due to the embarrassingly low reviews that it garnered, and fans would also shun it for the game's extreme departure from the formula that had brought so many to the series. These things, mixed with the questionable decision to take the sponsorship from Ball's energy drink so aggressively, led many people to laugh it off as the death of the series. Fallout had already been experimenting with its formula in what appeared to be an identity crisis during this time. The previous game, Fallout Tactics, while maintaining decent reviews, was drastically different from its predecessors. Fans looking to jump into the role of a character trying to uncover the wasteland around them in a type of open-world RPG would likely be disappointed. Tactics featured mission-based linear levels with the appearance of an open world on the map screen. While people were free to explore and find encounters, they wouldn't get far without following the quests. Some locations wouldn't even appear on the map without triggering the quest for them first. Brotherhood of Steel would double down on that idea, hosting levels that opened up through the story. No world map to speak of, and the only exploration you will get is by looking around the various stages. This isn't to say the design of Brotherhood of Steel is inherently wrong, not at all. In fact, the game follows suit with Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2, as the same engine was used for both. This would see Interplay catch a lawsuit from Snowblind, the creators of the engine. According to them, Interplay had used the engine for both Brotherhood of Steel and Dark Alliance 2 without permission and had not paid Snowblind any royalties. Snowblind would win, and Interplay would be barred from using the engine or the Baldur's Gate IP ever again. So what is the deal with Brotherhood of Steel? Is it really as bad as everyone says it is? Well, it's yes and no. In this video, we'll be looking at the game, and hopefully you can judge for yourself. It's safe to say that the game has earned its reputation, but how did it come to this? Let's talk about the black sheep of the Fallout family, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. For this video, I am recording from the original hardware of the OG Xbox. My capture card likes to fit the image to the screen, which allows for a good ratio for the video. Typically, I look down on this, as I want to use the original ratio or a remastered setting for the games that I cover. After plenty of internal debate, I settled with this method after comparing both ratios. The image didn't appear to be that stretched or distorted. Brotherhood of Steel offers a tutorial that aims to get you up to speed with the basics of the game, something that I absolutely recommend for those playing this for the first time. The controls are intuitive, but only for its time, meaning after playing games of this era, it does some good to see how it all works. You can choose between 3 playable characters, but more unlock once you have completed the game. For the sake of this video and brevity, I am using the super overpowered Vault Dweller, and yes, that is supposed to be the playable character from the original Fallout. And yes, he appears in the game as part of the story. The game starts with an opening cinematic, narrated by Tony J. It sets the mood for what's to come.
In the 1950s, we dreamed of a better world. Clean, fusion-powered cars, robots that walk the dog. Peaceful existence thanks to the wonders of science. We were close to achieving that dream when war broke out. Nuclear weapons were used without restraint. It was the nightmare everyone feared. It was the Great War. Millions died during the first attacks. A few people fled to underground vaults, but many more on the surface fell victim to the burning, poisonous air. For those who endured, there was only the wasteland. No order, no law, only survival. Radiation and new viruses changed the face of life on Earth forever. Out of nowhere, an army of giants called mutants appeared. They slaughtered many people and altered many more to add to their numbers. The Brotherhood of Steel, self-appointed knights of the wasteland, arose to drive off the mutants. They gave humanity peace and a glimmer of hope. But even now, the Brotherhood remains small in number, limited in power. And the dangers of the wasteland only seem to grow with each day that passes.
This kicks off Chapter 1, which takes place in the town of Carbon, Texas.
Deep in the wasteland lies the small town of Carbon. Once a model of pleasant rural America, Carbon is a ghost town, its people crushed by fear and strife. Carrying minimal supplies, a Brotherhood initiate enters this troubled town. The mission begins simply: establish contact with a group of Brotherhood paladins. But in the wasteland, nothing is ever that easy.
After the introduction, we see some raiders terrorizing the town, led by a scantily clad woman known as the Raider Matron. We are now free to speak to the townspeople and see what's going on around here. The main quest at this point is to find the rest of the Brotherhood patrol that came this way. The local bar seems to be a point of contention as many raiders have taken control of it. Clearing out the nonsense from here, we can then speak to Armpit, the barkeep. He can offer us caps for rad scorpion tails. One thing to note here is that the caps used in this game for currency are Ball's energy drink caps. The lore behind Nuka-Cola giving up the ghost and Balls taking its place is that in Texas, Nuka never caught on, and they just went to Balls instead. There you go. This becomes especially egregious when we see the meta advertisements in the game. One being for OG Fallout, which is off-putting in its own right, but the giant Balls bottle coming out of the billboards takes the cake. Outside the bar, we can meet Jesse, the merchant, who can buy and sell things with the player. We can also find the mayor, who can give us the quest to clear the rad scorpions out of the local warehouse. And we can meet the town doctor, Vidya, a former follower of the apocalypse who has settled down in Carbon. She wants you to find some medical supplies in the warehouse. With our quest in hand, we head to the warehouse and the game's first real dungeon. As promised, it's filled to the brim with rad scorpions, and we have to take out all of them before we leave. This is where the game first starts getting frustrating, and we are barely half an hour into the experience. Before we get into why, there are some meta lore breaks here that aren't really addressed in the Fallout universe, but something I picked up on. This is the only game in the Fallout series to feature cobwebs or spider webs of any kind. Not before or after have we seen these decorative pieces. From what I understood, it was a lore thing. Spiders in radiated areas in the real world have suffered from extreme changes. Most crucial of these being the web structure. Spiders have been observed making straight lines with their webs instead of traditional frameworks, leading to less food being caught and thus spiders dying off. This is something I thought the Fallout world took into consideration. Odds are an art director or a game artist designed these levels and thought the addition of cobwebs not only made sense, but looked good, and they would be right. I'm just pointing this out from a meta lore perspective. Spiders do not appear in this game as an enemy. The closest thing we get are these weird crickets that show up later. Back to the issue at hand, the frustration levels. This game is easy to navigate while being terrible to navigate. Allow me to explain. The quest is to take out all of the rad scorpions in the warehouse. The warehouse itself has a few floors and some puzzle aspects littered about to unlock these areas. Simple puzzles for sure, but things like blocked doors and locked rooms will push you further into the direction the game designer intended. The frustration comes when the only map you get is the one you see in the corner, which does not show you the location of any rad scorpions. So when you are out looking for them, it's a guessing game on if you missed any in the current area because of the camera angle, which can't be changed. Yes, pop-ups tell you how many scorps are left in each area, but the maps are enormous, and when one tiny rad scorpion hides behind a wall while fleeing, and you happen to pass by it, you then have to backtrack through the whole area to see where the little bastard is. This is likely just a product of age, but it has such an easy fix, as boss enemies show up on your map as red blips. No reason quest-related guys couldn't either. This is compounded by misdirection from the map itself. It will show you map exits to other areas as a gold blip on the map. When the active quest is calling for you to go in that direction, it will begin to flash, but it won't always account for the enemies being killed. One scorpion will have to be left alive in the warehouse, as you have to unlock the room he is in by going to the next floor and activating a crane. So the quest marker will tell you to keep going back and forth and warn you that one is left. This is a pattern that continues throughout the entire game. This problem can be avoided once you get the feel of the game, but it is incredibly confusing the first time around and can leave you stumped and frustrated. It's not the game's biggest problem, but it acts as an excellent base for sure. The combat doesn't feel that bad at all. In fact, if this formula was revisited for a Fallout-themed spin-off as perhaps a dual-stick shooter, I could see it working with the right care and affection. What we got in the early 2000s with Brotherhood of Steel feels very janky, but the actual gameplay isn't too off. Once we get to the warehouse's basement, we meet our first boss, a giant rad scorpion. Apparently, you break his claws with melee, which then opens him up for range attacks. This fight is easy and requires little thought to get through. If you have killed the rest of the scorps, this house is clear. Back in town, we can return the medical supplies to Vidya for a reward. Reporting that all of the rad scorpions are cleared from the warehouse to the mayor will give us another bonus and unlock the next level through the town elevator. Moving to the bar, we can get the Mr. Pussy quest from Ruby, which involves finding her cat in the town hole. While here, it is a good idea to turn in all of the scorp tails that we got as well to Armpit. The Vault Dweller can be found here as well, and we get an insight into just what Interplay had in mind for the protagonists of their biggest franchise.
I'm just an old wanderer. But you, too tough for the vaults, too big for the city, where food is hard to get? I'd say you're a farm boy. Join the Brotherhood because rats killed your family. Or something worse. If you said that to me 30 years ago, I'd have shot you and sold your gear for drinking money. I'm too old for that stuff now. Let me buy you a drink. Just got into town myself. Haven't seen anyone from the Brotherhood. Except yourself. I used to be in the Brotherhood too. That was a long time ago. Raiders. I've killed hundreds of them, and more keep popping up. As long as there are humans, there'll be raiders around to cause trouble. That hole? Don't know much about it, and I'm not interested in poking around down there. I've spent enough of my life underground.
So we make our way to the town crater, using the elevator to get to the upper level. Inside, we can find more of the same, a massive level space filled with twists and turns, even some platforming. After securing the now dead Mr. Pussy, we push onward through a crater that the game claims happened during the Great War. The crater is littered with bugs, including the aforementioned crickets. After battling it out through Carbon's broken remnants that now rest underground in this crater, we will eventually come to a rad scorpion nest. Climbing through the Scorp birthplace and graveyard, we find the mayor deep inside the pit. It turns out he has been working with the raiders all along to save his own hide, and for some reason wants you dead because of this. Time for another boss fight. The mayor has a gang of raiders with him, but they are little more than fodder. The real danger of the boss fight comes from the frag grenades that he spams whenever he stops moving. These can drain your health fast, so it's best to keep moving during the battle. Eventually, the mayor will collapse in defeat, and the whole crater seems to be coming down due to the explosions. Time to haul ass. We have to backtrack through the entire goddamn crater now, fighting formidable raiders along the way. Luckily, we make it to the exit just in time. Once we are back topside, we see the raider matron hassling Armpit, which leads to a brutal execution. With his last breath, Armpit begs for vengeance and gives you his rad scorpion recipe. Let's get an F in the comments for Armpit. He will not die in vain. The job now is to find the townspeople, most of which are holed up in the now cleared warehouse. They won't open the door until all of the raiders are taken care of, so the town becomes our next dungeon. This is pretty much a copy pasta of the first quest, just replacing the rad scorpions with raiders and the warehouse with the city. The big difference here is they want you to try and save innocent people as you go. The only reward I see from doing that is like 10 caps, and the downside of that is like not getting 10 caps, so use your own discretion when going through this quest. Once the raiders are dealt with, we can make our way into the warehouse to turn in the various quests we have found along the way. This will open up the next bit involving the raider matron herself, and speaking with Jessie, we will advance towards the mill, her hideout. We see the same type of energy here that we have everywhere else. As the genre calls for it, work your way through the enemies and get to the next level, with the added challenge of minefields, which can really do a number on you. While the action shooter genre is pretty self-explanatory and many games have pulled off great versions of the formula, something about Fallout Brotherhood of Steel seems repetitive. While other games in this bracket have been highly praised, Brotherhood of Steel comes off lazy in this department. It's almost an anomaly. How can you mess up a surefire game formula? Brotherhood of Steel answers this question by throwing the same scenarios at you in nearly every level, something that is for some reason hard for me to explain. You would really have to experience it for yourself. Perhaps the presentation gives off this vibe, but something about it just drags on and on. So after fighting our way through various parts of the mill with no real highlights, we reach the Raider Matron.
Nice doing business with you. If you need any more help... What the hell was that? You better not be messing with me, you big...
I have nothing to do with it. My troops have gathered the slaves and moved on. Our business is concluded.
Wait! Where are you going? If there's a problem, maybe you can stay and help me out. Then I can help you.
Your charms are wasted on me. Frankly, I think you're repulsive, selling your own kind. Whatever problem you now face, it's yours to face alone.
I'm not giving you a choice!
This is another piss poor excuse for a boss fight. She just flips around. You can pretty much just stand in front of her and shoot, using stim packs if you happen to get too damaged somehow. About time I bring up the fact that random metal music starts to play anytime you enter a boss fight. I'm not here to judge anyone's taste in music. I like some of the songs featured. It just takes away from the Fallout vibe significantly. After defeating the Raider Matron, we can bring a Vault 13 flask we found to the Vault Dweller. Who knows what it's doing out here? Roughly 1,365 miles, or 2,196 kilometers away from Mount Whitney, known location of Vault 13. But hey, who's counting, right? When we are ready to leave, he can take us to the City of Loss, which is where the ghouls hang out. Ruby mentioned a ghoul named Harold that she met, and you guessed it, this is the same Harold from the previous games, just with an abysmal voice. Going to Loss will kick off Chapter 2.
The City of Loss, a shattered husk of the shining metropolis it once was. Decaying bodies and broken stone give the air a graveyard stench. Loss is a ghoul city. And somewhere here, the Brotherhood Initiate hopes to find the lost paladins and learn more about this mutant army. The field test has become a far greater mission.
Arriving at Loss, we can finally see one of the main baddies in the game, Blake, who is only identified as a ghoul cult priest at the moment. Now it's off to talk to Harold for some cringe moments for any fans of the classic Fallout games.
Oh, I remember Ruby. Put quite a scare into that little girl. Not on purpose, mind you. Sometimes the meat slides right off the bone, if you know what I mean. Oh, that was a wild time.
One of the best features of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel lies in Loss. This, of course, is the arena that can be triggered by the merchant here. One can make a mess of caps doing all the tiers of the arena, but remember to back out and save every couple of levels. Once you get to the invisible death claws, shit can get pretty dicey. After hitting it rich, we are ready to go through what Loss has in store for us. We can talk to Geese to hear about the mutants in the area. It seems they are down at the docks, just standing around, waiting like. We will be fighting hostile ghouls as we make our way to these docks. It's pretty standard Brotherhood of Steel stuff at this point. Clear out the enemies and loot the things in each area, until we finally get to the edgiest Vault Tech location in the entire Fallout series. Meet Pentagram Vault Boy. When you interact with the stim pack on the sacrificial altar, radioactive waste begins to pour out of his eyes. Neat. After fighting through more ghouls, we find Blake bullying a Brotherhood paladin.
Where have you hidden the key, human? You will speak swift-winged words, or suffer dark visions of torment.
Do your worst, zombie. I am not afraid.
You do not comprehend that we are the same. The Brotherhood of Steel and the Church of the Lost, guarding against the terrors of science.
We are not the same. And when a squad of Brotherhood Knights arrive, they will tear through your precious city, digging up all your secrets.
You will die tomorrow, howling.
This turns out to be Rhombus from the original Fallout. Of course it is. It's time to take the fight to Blake, so we enter another lackluster boss fight. He speaks in verses and has a cool voice, but he will be stopped. Fighting him is easy, just point and shoot, and it shouldn't take long. So now, we follow Rhombus to a key that he hid that opens the vault. Of course there is a vault, and this one housed Vault-Tec personnel. Once we get to the keycard, Rhombus is ambushed and mortally wounded. F's in the comments for Rhombus. During his final moments, we tell him just how shit he is, and that it's time to move on. Well, more like it's time to backtrack through laws fighting mutants and ghouls and a fuck ton of crickets. Eventually, we will hit the vault, but not before we have a boss fight with some pretty OP turrets. After the battle, we hit the vault and kick off the third and final chapter of this shit show.
The Vault-Tec Corporation designed the underground facilities that protected, or failed to protect, thousands of lives during the nuclear war. It was only logical that Vault-Tec had its own vault, where specialists and executives have lived for many years, safely conducting research to benefit the failing world above. But what holy grail lies hidden within this stronghold? What horrors lie dormant here, awaiting their unsuspecting prey?
The vault is where everything gets ramped up to 11. You thought things were repetitive and shitty before? Well, you done fucked up when you came in here, son. This is where Brotherhood of Steel reaches its pinnacle of shittiness. You have been warned. Oh, but we've gone too far to let the game win now, so we press further into the vault. You can buy things from a Vault Boy vending machine. I mean, I guess it's Vault Boy. Look at his cold, dead stare. It's like he knows what a cursed life he is forced to live, stuck inside this nightmare of a game, with no way out. I feel his pain. I picked up a perk that gave me a faithful canine companion that I am sure is exclusive to the Vault Dweller character, an obvious nod to Dogmeat and perhaps a shining diamond in the rough that I got while making this video. Then, a super mutant takes a super piss.
When guard duty over, Bob, me have to go body. Just wait. Guard duty is almost over. But me have to go bad. Okay. You go, I'll stay. No!
After fighting through mutants and doing shelf puzzles, we will come to another frustrating point of the game. Flipping switches and going through laser fields. One touch of the red lasers kills you instantly, so after carefully navigating this area and fighting off some mutants and robots, we meet Addis.
Ah, at last I meet the mouse who stalks lions. I am Attis, a general in the mutant army, and you have something I need, little mouse.
A boss fight ensues, but before being defeated, some Nightkin come and ruin the party. Addis chops off one of your arms and throws you into a pit. Lucky for us, there is someone down here that can lead us to the local population and get us a new arm, I guess? On our way there, we can't use two-handed weapons, run, jump, or do really anything while we get absolutely bodied while walking there. Once we get to home base, we can mingle with the residents here and get stocked up. We got more frustrating levels to navigate and waves of enemies to kill. First, we have to guide a technician to the central computer hub. Easy enough until we get bombarded by unlimited spawning robots at the end. Once this gets taken care of, it's more laser force fields and robot fights for us. This time we have to play a little puzzle game with the switches to get to the locations we need to, ultimately leading to more boss fights with Nightkins and super mutants. Then it's back to the garden for more of the same. Working our way through the ruins introduces Deathclaws to the regular enemy encounters. Not too bad, but worth noting as they can suck the life out of you. The Deathclaw designs in Fallout Brotherhood of Steel aren't terrible in my opinion. They are for sure different, but I think they represent the creatures well in this universe. There's a part deep in the vault where you're supposed to shoot switches in different rooms, but the game doesn't really tell you that, and this is the first time it ever gets brought up as a solution. The only hint you get is a quick try blowing shit up message when you interact with it enough times. But you probably would only try the switch once, since that's never really been the pattern during the game. Past that, we have more Deathclaw nests to get through with varying sizes of Deathclaws to set the pace. One thing I found neat was the critical hit damage on the larger Deathclaws. Pieces of their face would get shot off and they would just keep coming, and that was kind of badass, I must admit. We will eventually find the scientist we are looking for, but he wakes up the Mama Deathclaw shortly after. Again, look at the model on this thing. It's pretty fucking cool, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. It gives me a Xenomorph vibe, but to the extreme. Too bad it exists in this game, because the boss fight is dog shit easy, and we move on from it with ease. The only real thing to look out for is her ability to heal in the radioactive puddles of goo, so you gotta smoke her quick when she's running back and forth. After fighting some more Deathclaws, the invisible kind, we will end up back in the garden, this time infested with super mutants. Clearing them out and working our way through the vault, we will come to a password-protected terminal that we can find the code for on an old ring that's just lying around. We see more of the same until we get to some mini-boss fights with different variants of mutants. This all culminates with another meeting with Addis.
Ah, it's the mouse. You find me standing upon the threshold of utter failure. The chemical compound is ineffectual.
The first part of this boss fight is easier than most of the battles we have had thus far. Addis runs around in circles until you damage him enough, but then he takes his final form. Now, it's just about getting through the different parts of this new Addis that has taken control of the vault to reach the nuke in the center. Nothing too complicated. And once we finally do flip that switch, we have a couple of minutes to get the hell out of here and reach a monorail that is supposed to take us miles away. After we do, the whole place blows sky high, presumably killing everyone we've met along the way.
System malfunction. Please alert vault maintenance. Nuclear device is now armed. Vault seals ready to engage. Countdown sequence commencing. Malfunction. Nuclear device is about to detonate. Now.
That's it, roll credits, end of the game. So after that retrospective on the story, let's talk about the various aspects of the game and how I feel they really add up. When it comes to general gameplay, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is not that bad, at least on the surface. The real folly comes from perhaps not knowing how to apply it. The run and gun shooter genre is rich with great titles. Hack and slash is a top-rated game formula. So to play through a game based in the Fallout universe using these elements, it's a recipe for a good time. Something about this game just falls flat in that aspect, but it's hard to put a finger on just what it is, as not one thing stands out about the gameplay as being that wrong, but rather dull. It gets boring incredibly fast, and the confusing layout just leads to more frustration. On that topic, the game's layout and structure might be its biggest gameplay design flaw. I can't be the only one who got hopelessly lost in a few of the areas, struggling to figure out what I was supposed to do, and that is a clear sign of bad game design. This is a linear, level-based game. There's no reason you should ever be confused about what your next step should be or what enemies are left in the area. All of the poor game design choices combined do not speak as loud to me as the various hits to the Fallout lore that happen in this game. It's not considered canon by any means, but it's insulting that someone wrote this off as okay when releasing an official title in the series. Nuka-Cola being replaced with balls, the playable ghoul that is supposed to be in the Brotherhood ranks, these types of small things stand out to long-term fans and will overall come off as a negative as a result. One positive in the game is the music. Not so much the random metal that plays, but more so the ambient tracks. The main menu song is a delightful tune that fits the Fallout universe well.
Said the electron to the neutron, you sure could be dense. With this much attraction, there's no civil defense.
and the ambient tracks throughout the game do an outstanding job of setting the mood. But overall, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is a janky mess. While its overall look isn't terrible, you find the rotten center once you get into the meat. A lazy Fallout game on a stolen engine looking to cash Interplay out of their impending bankruptcy, signing on corporate sponsors like Ball's energy drink and gutting giant parts of their game's identity to do so. This entry almost seals the deal that Interplay didn't have much love for Fallout towards the end of their life, as actions speak much louder than words. What we got was mainly an enormous insult to the fan base, but it was for sure the black sheep of the Fallout family. Thank you for checking out my video about Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this if you haven't already. It helps out a lot. I want to thank my patrons and YouTube channel members and give a special thanks to my biggest supporters: Slib, JP Rivera, Fireflare, Primarch Mustard, Edgy, Bill Scott Sheets, Alexander Cobb, Thomas, Papa Swanson, Billy Joe Jimbob, Hatched Bread Gaming, and Phil Starsick. Thank you all for the support. I couldn't do it without you. I hope to catch you on the next one. It has been Mantis.
I gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die, you gon' touch the sky. You gon' touch the sky, baby girl. Testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die, you gon'